Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America. It just might be the greatest sports franchise in the history of sports. A place where legends are made, and there's always something to talk about. Get ready to immerse yourself in pinstripes. Start Spreading the News, hosted by Paul Semendinger and E.J. Fagan, a couple of doctors with a prescription for Yankee fever. And now, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan. Get ready to start spreading the news.
You know, it really should say, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger, and EJ will be on in a moment. But I don't know. I guess I can pull us both up at the same time. Just a quick reminder, my dear friends, this is the Start Spreading the News podcast brought to you by Artemisia Publishing, a great publisher, a traditional publisher, an American publisher with a wide variety, a plethora of great offerings from award-winning authors like me. So check out apbooks.net for all your reading needs, wants, and desires. And of course, they have 2 great Yankee books that I wrote there and another one coming probably within a year. But all of that is a secret for now. Let's start talking Yankees. EJ, how are you?
Paul, doing wonderful. I should note, other book fans, my book is now available as an audiobook. You can buy The Thinkers, The Rise of Partisan Think Tanks and the Polarization of American Politics tomorrow, wherever audiobooks are sold.
That is awesome. That, EJ, I'm so happy for your success, and I'm so happy that the book is doing well. And is this the first of many, or are you written out?
I want to write lots of books. I have too many books I want to write. I think the cool thing about it, most academic books, they don't sell very well. They don't get turned into audiobooks. This one did. I don't really know why the press decided to do it. They haven't done it for any other books. And I suspect that one reason is that the wonderful people who follow this show, my podcast, Substack, probably helped me pump up those numbers a little bit. So thank you very much. It's kind of cool that tomorrow I'm going to download my audiobook in the Audible app. I've been an Audible member since like 2011. So I've read had a book a month since 2011. And never thought I'd have my book in that little app. So it's pretty cool.
That is cool. That is cool. You got to bring it to like family parties and things like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Got to show my cousins what's up. So.
Right. Like what you could do is you could just get the book on the Audible app and like have it on your phone, and during Thanksgiving dinner, just sort of click it, and the voice will be talking like,
"Oh, I'm sorry,
by Dr. E.J. Fagan." Oh,
I'll tell you.
Cool.
So I didn't read
it. That button. I'm sorry. Did I tell you I wrote a book?
Well, I know, Paul, you record your own audiobook.
I did. Yes.
I didn't record this. Someone else, or a professional, recorded it. Some guys recorded hundreds of audiobooks. It's going to be weird listening to somebody read my own book to me. But I'm excited for it.
Hey,
I'm also excited for the World Series, by the way.
Yeah, I think I think the Mets and the Guardians, it's gonna be a great World Series. In the end, I just didn't. I knew it. I knew the Yankees wouldn't be able to beat the Guardians bullpen, and I knew it would just be frustration. Here we are, another year, another off season, and they should fire Cashman. They should fire Aaron Boone, and I'd get rid of Aaron Judge. I mean, it's just
it's weird. I feel like I've said that for every year that I've been doing, not just this show, but my podcast, my blog, it's been 15 years. And really, the Yankees haven't gotten all that close in those 15 years. 2010, they had a pretty good team. 2017, 2019, those teams had a shot to go far.
Oh, we were a strike away at one point, weren't we? Or an inning away with
well, those teams were good, but they were all frustrating in their own little way.
Yes,
and I think that this team is just a good team. There's some players on there that aren't as good as other players. It's still a 92 win team, but they got fewer holes than the Dodgers, who don't have any pitching or starting pitching. And I kind of like them. I like Giancarlo Stanton right now. I like Anthony Rizzo. I like Judge Soto. I like Austin Wells. Even the guys who aren't performing. Volpe has been a lot of fun. And I just think back to kind of memories of that 2009 team. That was my team. The 90s World Series, I was a kid for it, right? I was 9 years old in 96. I got to watch those teams as a child. The 2009 team, like I watched every second of that team. And I can tell you little moments, just backwards and forwards, every little bit of that team, that was playoffs, the players, tell you their whole biographies. And it's been a while, and I've only started to follow the Yankees as closely as we do, because we do the show, we do the other shows and everything. I was blogging about the Yankees back then, but mostly their minor league team. This is special. This is gonna be cool, win or lose. It's kind of cool to be back, and I'm excited.
I am too, and it is great. It's been a long time coming. I have been very critical. I think probably a little more critical than you have. You're a little bit more half full. I'm a little bit more half empty when it comes to the Yankees, I guess. But they did it.
Yep. And they did it convincingly, right?
Yeah, right. And in the playoffs, they have. I mean, the games were close. They were nail biters, but they've lost 2 games in 2 series. I mean, you almost can't be better than that.
They've made big comebacks. They've made big clutch plays. The big players, except for maybe Aaron Judge, have been the ones that have shown up and been big at times. And even Judge had a really big home run that if we had won that game would have really gone down the way that the Soto home run did, the Stanton home runs. You got other players in the roster who've been struggling for big parts of the season that have been great, right? Gleyber Torres has been incredible. Best leadoff guy in baseball right now. Anthony Volpe looks like a completely different hitter and has just been fantastic. I really like this team, and and we'll talk about it. I think they're going to beat the Dodgers. I think this is the best team in baseball right now.
Oh my goodness. I can't imagine the jubilation and the joy and the happiness. One thing I'm not happy about, and I'll be serious about this for a minute. I told you, I think it was last week, if the Yankees make it to the World Series, Ethan and I are going to go to a game.
You see the prices.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to a game.
Yeah.
And I can't blame the Yankees entirely. I'm in favor of a free market society. So I mean, I don't want who's going to tell us that the people who own the tickets, they can't sell them for what people are going to pay. Number one, I don't think people in the end are going to pay this. I think, because I said to Ethan when he was looking at the prices, we're looking at about $1,000 for a World Series game for standing room only. And I said to Ethan, he was checking SeatGeek and whatever, all the other ones, whatever they're called, and StubHub or whatever. And I said, how many tickets are there? He goes, oh, there's billions. So I said, you know what? Right now they're expensive. Day of the game, I bet you they come down a bit. That's my hope. If they come down,
I was going to go. I had plans. My thought was I'm going to be in Hartford for Game 5. The day of Game 5. I have enough time where I could get to the stadium if I had to, with a little bit of time, just barely. And so I said, okay, I'll go buy an upper deck seat. And Scott Moss and I, who's also been on my podcast before.
Oh, yeah, I know Scott. Yeah,
Scott was going to be in town, so we're like, okay, we'll go get 2 seats. And then we looked at the prices, and on SeatGeek, upper deck, $1,400 per ticket. I can't do that. There's really good seats. The down low seats are $36,000 per ticket. I think it just tells you about the popularity of the Yankees, right? This is a team that was selling out when the team was depressing, and now that they're in the World Series, that's very much not the case. I think you're right. I think prices will come down. No one's buying that upper deck ticket for $1,800.
I just can't. And if the seat prices stay that high, and then I hear during a broadcast, the Yankee Stadium faithful are in the ballpark. The common, like, no, they're not. Shut up. They're just not. The average fan, unless he's mortgaging his house and deciding not to eat for a month, isn't paying $1,000.
I think some season ticket holders. I think some season ticket holders probably. These are resale prices. I think some of these tickets told for $250 originally.
Yes, I think the average price. So I want to bring that up. I think the average price. It's very hard to find this out, but the average price is $300 a seat. And if the Yankees, you can check my math. If the Yankees have 47,000 seats, that means the Yankees, if the average price of a ticket for the game is $300, are going to make $14 million in ticket sales in one game. Yeah. And so,
I don't think a lot. I think half of that split with the players. The players get get a huge share of that, which is nice.
So, which they deserve. But let's just go with these numbers. So let's say the average ticket price for the KC series and the Cleveland series was $200.
Mm-hmm.
So that means those series each made $18.6 million. So those two series for 4 home games brought in $37.2 million. The Yankees are going to get at least 2 home games in the World Series at $28 million.
Yep.
That's $65 million that the Yankees are going to bring in.
And ticket prices. That's right.
On ticket prices. Yep. Now, here we go. And then let's just do this. I think a beer, I don't drink beer, but I think a beer costs about $12. So they're a can. I would assume that there's an $11 markup on that. I am probably more, but let's just say it's an $11 markup. And if every fan buys 1 beer, and I think that's a fair, accurate assessment, I think probably
on
low.
average, yeah.
Yeah, on average. So there's a guy like me who doesn't buy 1, and the guy next to me buys 2. But I bet you the guy next to me buys 4. But anyway, that's another $3.1 million every game just in beer sales. I mean, so my point is this: I do not want the Yankees, when this is all over, to go, "Oh, we can't afford Juan Soto." Yes, you can.
I agree, and but I'm also I'm gonna enjoy watching it on TV. I want to talk about it. Let's talk about this series, and we talk about the Cleveland series. It's cool.
It's all pretty cool. Let's talk about the World Series. The Yankees beat Cleveland. It was a few days ago. Jubilation Saturday night. Juan Soto.
Incredible.
Very frustrating.
Incredible
series.
I blew my voice out on Saturday night into an empty room. Right, the kid was upstairs. My wife was upstairs with him. I had a closed door, and I lost my voice screaming just to me. And that was how incredible that Juan Soto home run was. That whole at bat.
Yes. Now, Ethan I was away, and Ethan was away, so we weren't watching it together. But he was saying to his girlfriend, he told me later that he just knew. He goes, sometimes you can just see it in a player. And the way he was just looking at the pitcher and nodding at him and going he didn't think he's going to hit a home run, but he said he's coming through. Juan Soto is not going to let us down in this at-bat. And then he hit the home run. So yeah, just absolute joy. So let's go to the World Series, and I'll ask you, what's the biggest concern that you have about the Yankees heading to the World Series?
It's a good question. I'm concerned that that they're going to deal with a really good offense for the first time this playoffs. They basically held the Guardians and especially the Royals in check, and it didn't take that many runs to win a game. Now, part of the reason why they didn't score a lot of runs is because those teams both have really good pitching staffs, especially the starting pitching of the Royals, the bullpen of the Guardians. They broke through, especially late in the Cleveland series when everybody started to get a little bit tired. But the Dodgers can score runs, right? The Dodgers, you're not worried about, Steven Kwan and Jose Ramirez. You're worried about Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts.
And Freddie Freeman.
Well, Freeman may not play. He's hurt. He can barely walk right now. He might do a Kirk Gibson on us, which I really don't like the idea of a limping star first baseman for the Los Angeles Dodgers. But he might play. He might not. We'll see. He's going to have a week off. They have guys like Teoscar Hernandez who've given the Yankees problems in the past. So they have a team. And I worry that the Yankees are going to have to score 6, 7, 8 runs in a lot of games to win. And can that happen? It can. I think the thing that has to happen for them to score that many runs is Aaron Judge needs to be back. And he hasn't been great this postseason. He hasn't been awful, but he has He is definitely not kind of Aaron Judge. At first, we thought that was a timing thing, and looked like he was going to get his timing back. I don't know what it is now. Is he injured? Was there a tip on him that people that teams are exploiting? I don't know. But I think if the Yankees are going to slug it out with the Dodgers, they need Aaron Judge to be a part of that slug it out. They may not have to. We can talk about it. I think the Yankees have a better pitching staff by a lot than the Dodgers. I also think they have a better hitting staff against right-handed pitchers.
And the Dodgers have only one lefty, right?
They have one lefty, and his name's Anthony Band. He's not very good. That may not be as true as it was, during the regular season with Torres and Volpe and looking good, Stanton looking good. But the Yankees' kind of classic problem has been left-handed pitching. They saw a ton of it against the Royals, a little bit less against Cleveland. I was worried that the Mets were going to throw 3 left-handed stars against them, but now the Dodgers are going to throw a bunch of righties at them, and the Yankees are the best offense in baseball against righties. So I'm pretty confident in that. But they might have to score some runs. This could be a fun series, and that could be a lot of offense in this series, and maybe that's good for baseball.
Yeah, I mean, it's the series in itself has to be good for baseball. You've got both coasts. You've got L.A. You've got New York.
Incredible.
Yeah.
The right? Commissioner is just counting the money right now, right? I mean, this is huge.
And it's a great traditional rivalry. So it brings back all the stories of Duke Snider against Mickey Mantle and Jackie Robinson and Yogi Berra and Reggie Jackson and Davey Lopes and Dusty Baker and Tommy Lasorda and Billy Martin and Sandy Koufax and Johnny Padres and Sandy Amoros. And it's like, this is all those Al Gianfrido and Joe DiMaggio, all those great old stories. Mickey Owen dropping the 3rd strike. I could go on. They just keep popping to my head. That's sort of, in a very real sense, a lot of the allure, the love of baseball is you have these eternal stories that just last for generations. And when the Yankees play the Dodgers, you get a chance to bring those stories back much more than you do when, I don't know, the Guardians are playing the Padres or something.
I mean, there'll be a lot of that, but also just these are the 2 big dogs in baseball. Maybe not like the 2 best teams entering the playoffs. I think the Phillies would have been in that conversation, but the Dodgers and the Yankees, this is the big 2, the big 2 markets, the big 2 payrolls, the 2 teams that should have been here at the beginning of the season, and then they're here now. As much as I see reasons to enjoy the Texas Rangers versus the Arizona Diamondbacks, that's different. Those were 2 teams that got hot, and they beat some really good teams, and one of them was going to win the World Series in the end. That's not the case here, right? These 2 teams were the best team, we're the best teams in their league during the regular season. We're supposed to be this good when they started the season, have the biggest stars in the game, have the 3 best offensive players in baseball all on the field at the same time. And then Mookie Betts is not far behind. It's a powerhouse versus a powerhouse, big heavyweight fight. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes you want the underdog. Sometimes you want Rocky Balboa versus Apollo Creed. But sometimes you want the rematch of a Rocky versus Apollo, or you want the 2 big dogs going against each other, and so that's where we are, and I'm excited. I'm ready to go. Like Friday is way too long. What are we doing, people? Let's play this game tomorrow. Let's get going.
Yeah, I don't understand why they waited till, I guess
it's a TV rights thing. I'm sure it's a TV revenue
ridiculous
thing.
But oy vey. Now, does this put an end? Because I hate narratives that make no sense. I talk about them all the time when I'm watching the games. I won't go on my rant about momentum, because if momentum had any lasting power, it wouldn't change all the time. Well, now they've got the momentum. Well, now they've got momentum, and now they just well, then it doesn't mean anything, because it's so transient. They have it. Nobody has it. Everybody has it. But anyway, does this put an end to the narrative about this week off nonsense? Oh, the team that has the week off can't win. Well, the Dodgers and the Yankees both did. Now they're in the World Series.
Yeah, look, I think that there's pluses and minuses to having the week off. The minus is that you might lose some timing. The plus is that you get to rest. And the teams that got to rest won this year. They lost the year before. Right. And I think I think in the end it's probably a bit of a wash. I'll say that going into the World Series, both teams are going to have a week off. Yeah. So both teams will be rested and will have some timing problems. And that's good. I like that. I like that that's not a problem. Let's just watch the game.
Friday night. So Garrett Cole's had 3 starts in the playoffs. He's had 1 really good one and 2 less so, not so great. I mean, pretty good, not really. So what kind of Garrett Cole do you think we'll see?
I think we'll see a good Garrett Cole. To me, starters have been a real disappointment for pretty much every team in the playoffs. If you look at the list of like starters that pitch 6 or 7 innings, it's pretty small. Garrett Cole has one of those really good starts. Carlos Rodon has one of those really good starts, and then the other starts, both of them weren't very good. I think Garrett Cole will be the best starter on the mound against any of the 3 Dodgers starters. However they choose to align their rotation, and I don't know how that will be, Garrett Cole will be better. That still might mean he might get pulled in the 4th or 5th inning. I hope he doesn't. I think the lesson of this series, the Yankees against the Astros years ago, just watching baseball, is that when you have a lot of close games, you can't just rely on your bullpen. The Guardians, I think, made a mistake during the series in pulling some of their starters way too early, especially
second inning.
Tanner Bybee was fine in the 2nd inning. You got to give him a chance to get a little deeper, and it cost them later in the series. You can't sprint an entire 7-game series. You can sprint the last game or 2. You can sprint if you have an off day coming up, and maybe you got a good 7 innings out of your starter the day before. But the Guardians bullpen was rock solid, right? This was the best bullpen in baseball by a mile, with the best closer in baseball by a mile. And they got rocked. And they got rocked because they were tired and the Yankees saw them a lot. Emmanuel Clase, you can throw a 101-mile-an-hour cutter, but he got beat a lot this postseason. And frankly, the Yankees have beaten quite a lot over the last couple of years. I think that
I saw a great comment on our site when the Yankees were losing in Clase. I guess it was after the one loss in Cleveland, and somebody wrote in after Clase did poorly again. I can just see it now. He'll be a Yankee next year.
Yeah, really. Look, I think that Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon are the 2 biggest assets the Yankees have early in the series, right? If those 2 guys can go 5 or 6 innings, and even if the Yankees split those games, it's going to hurt the Dodgers because the Dodgers just don't have the starting pitching. They did a bullpen game for Game 6. They were able to do that successfully because they got really lucky in how the runs were distributed in the series. Every game was a blowout for the NLDS. There's one game that was close. And so the Dodgers didn't have to use their top relievers in every game. And then they could use them all for Game 6 because they didn't have a starting pitcher to throw those games. If the Yankees can keep the Dodgers close or knock out their starters early or whatever, they can't do that, right? The Dodgers will be as vulnerable as the Cleveland Guardians, maybe more, because they only have 3 starting pitchers, and none of them are any good right now, at least. I think that also the Dodgers bullpen, I don't think it's not as good as the Guardians bullpen. Like, you look at the names, there's some names in there that you recognize. Some of these guys like Trinan, Daniel Hudson have been on the Dodgers for a while now. A lot of them have ERAs in the 3s, which is below average for a relief pitcher. Blake Trinan's great. He looked incredible in the last 2 innings of the NLDS. That was he's a good pitcher and had a great year. But after him, I'm just not really scared of that bullpen. Not a lot of high velocities. Again, all right-handed pitchers. I really think that if the Yankees can get to those bullpens early, and can either win games in a blowout or keep it close and force the Dodgers to use their bullpen, I think they have the advantage in this series. I hope that baseball learns the lesson that playoff teams need starting pitching. That a really good bullpen is a little bit overrated. It's important to have a couple of guys like a Mariano Rivera, right? There's a couple of guys who can be your guys late in the series or late in innings. But you cannot rely on pulling your starter in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th innings all the time, unless it's Game 7. If it's Game 7, sure, whatever, right? Then all hands on deck, right?
That's correct.
Or if Cleveland in Game 5, it's an elimination game, fine, right? Like that's different. But games 1, 2, and 3, I think the Yankees need to prioritize getting innings, and not using the same guys every game. Like Luke Weaver pitched 6 innings in the championship series, 6 innings in 5 games. And by the end, he was throwing 94, right? Like he was gassed.
And I
Mhm.
do think there's some logic and rationale to this idea that especially Luke Weaver, who's
Mm.
pitched great, but he's not a great pitcher. He's not Mariano Rivera. He has his trick, and it's worked primarily for the most part. But if you have a pitcher who's, getting it done with a little bit of smoke and mirrors or whatever, because he's a little bit of a novelty act because he never was this before, if you overexpose him, that gives them that extra look,
Yeah.
another look, and then all of a sudden he's not such a surprise anymore. You know what that pitch is going to do.
And look, Emmanuel Clase throws a 101-mile-an-hour cutter, and getting 5 looks at him was enough, right? Yeah, and at that point he was vulnerable, and no one else has a 101-mile-an-hour cutter, right? Like that tells you that really any of these guys will be vulnerable over a long time. Speaking of smoke and mirrors, by the way, my favorite quote, Ron Darling. I don't know if you caught this when Tommy Kahnle was up. I think in Game 4, maybe it was Game 5. And he says, Tommy Kahnle, we teach pitchers that, to win, you have to change speeds and use both sides of the plate. And Tommy Kahnle has thrown 24 straight changeups. So maybe just none of that makes any sense. He's basically doing a Mariano Rivera act, right? He's just throwing his one pitch.
Correct. Now,
and he doesn't get worked. Why not?
It has worked, but we have seen him over reliant on the changeup.
Well, the thing is, we've seen him, but he has never. He has been, when he was getting beat, it was changeup, fastball, occasional slider. Now he's just said, like, I'm just going to throw my changeup, and because we call it a changeup, we have this idea that it's a pitch that in a vacuum would be bad, but it fools batters, right? It's the reason why it's a good pitch is because it's not a fastball, and so batters are out in front of it. But if we just called it a sinker, I think we'd be okay with it. And he's got a really good sinker or a splitter or whatever you want to call it.
I like what you're saying, and I put this comment on Start Spreading the News the other day. If it's a changeup, by definition, doesn't that mean that it's changing up the speed off the fastball? And if the only pitch you're throwing is a changeup, isn't that just your fastball?
I mean, it's a really good moving fastball, but I think you could. I mean, look, changeups. I think I don't think he throws a circle change, so it's a 2-seam grip, right?
Right. So is it a changeup or is it something different?
I mean, look, he's got 3 fingers on the ball, so it's probably, you could probably call it a changeup, but like it moves like a sinker.
Right. So let's call it a sinker.
Splitter, right? Yeah.
Listen, I throw a changeup. That's my fastball.
Yeah.
Look, fastball's a changeup, but I'm not calling it. I change up off my fastball, right? I throw a changeup that's not as fast.
Was Mariano Rivera's cutter just a fastball?
No, it was a cutter. It moved.
No, it was a cut fastball, right?
Right. So I just think calling it a changeup is silly because it's his fastball.
That said, I think that there is a little bit of smoke and mirrors to the Yankee bullpen. And I'm okay with that. I think Tim Hill has been incredible and is going to be really important because you're going to face Ohtani and Betts and maybe Freeman or however they arrange that lineup. I think that Jake Cousins, with a Bugs Bunny slider, like it worked against Cleveland. None of these guys, you're not going to remember this bullpen as like a powerhouse bullpen, a bunch of veterans who don't cave under pressure or whatever. Like this is an island of misfit toys bullpen. And I'm skeptical, but maybe they can keep it together for one more week. And if they do, then the Yankees win the World Series, and Luke Weaver is the first Yankee closer since John Wetland, I guess, not to be Mariano Rivera and save a World Series. He's going to go down in history that way. That's pretty cool. Tim Meza and Mark Leiter Jr. These guys are going to be like, the Sterling Hitchcocks of the world. They're going to be legends.
Well, in 96, it was David Weathers and Graham Lloyd, who neither one pitched well during the season, and then they stepped up in the postseason.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, first of all, the Yankees are going to add another reliever, at least one. They should at least, right? They only brought 8 relievers into Cleveland, into the Cleveland series, which was really low. I think the lowest for any of the teams this postseason. And I think they really missed that extra reliever, especially in Game 5 when everybody was down and they had to bring up like Tommy Kahnle a little bit and had to warm up in the 9th inning. Luke Weaver had to warm up in Game 4. Mark Leiter Jr. went from being off the roster to being like an important piece of the pen just right away. I think they need the extra guy. And really, it seems like Nestor Cortez is going to be that guy. And I'm very curious about that. We haven't heard a lot of
all right,
updates on him.
So if you're saying there's going to be 8 release, you think there's going to be 9?
They brought 8 in. I think it's going to be 9. It's
right,
got to
so-
be 9.
so
Like, you are so gassed
Canely?
right now. You need them.
Canely,
yep.
Weaver, Cousins, Leiter, Hill, Meza, Cortez,
Holmes and Stroman.
Oh, okay. And actually, look, my next question for you is about Marcus Stroman. There it is, right there. What role is Marcus Stroman going to play in this series?
I think his role is to eat innings if there's a blowout. Right, the Yankees haven't had a blowout this postseason. They hadn't had a moment where you can say, we're definitely going to win or lose this game. And so Stroman hasn't played. I think he would have played. He would have pitched had that game gone longer in Game 5. But I don't think he's that good right now. And so you don't pitch him in a game where innings are meaningful. So yeah, wait, there'll be a blowout at some point. Maybe. It's where over the last couple of years, really, the Yankees have pitched just every single game has been close. It's why their bullpen keeps getting so exhausted. And so I don't know. I hope the Yankees win, score 10 runs in the first inning, and then you can have Stroman. Until then,
I wrote that today too.
I mean, I'd rather there was a lane where it was either Stroman or Meza last night or in Game 5. And it was, I think I was a Meza fan at that point because I just think Stroman doesn't have it, especially against lefties.
I had written on the site that I want each game in this World Series. Some people are saying I'm looking forward to 7 games. I'm looking forward to back and forth.
Give me a sweep. Let's do it. Let's get it over with.
And I want them 12-0. I want the Yankees to score 12 runs in the first inning, and I want the pitcher to throw a no-hitter. I don't want any stress. I don't want them to be good baseball games.
I agree that I don't want them to. I would. Winning is important, and I think we'll all feel much better about ourselves if the Yankees break their streak of not winning the World Series. I'll say the last 3 games of the Cleveland series were incredible. I mean, that was some baseball. I
don't need to see good baseball. I'm not. I have no interest.
Something. I am also stressed by good baseball, but I think we just watched one of the best championship series I've ever seen. The Cleveland Guardians, they kept the Yankees close. There were comebacks after comebacks, big heroic moments for lots of people. It didn't feel like a 5-game series. It felt like a classic 7-game series where the two teams are really slugging it out, and the Yankees won 4 out of 5. Yes, I agree with you that stress is a problem, but it would also be kind of fun to do that again and have a crazy series. I think about the drama of the 2016 World Series. Where you have the rain delay and you're going into extras, and the Cubs have like a big team meeting, and they come out of the rain delay and they win it, and the Cubs win the World Series, and they break their 100-year-old curse.
Yeah,
I think
I'm happy for every game. I hope every team next year, every game they all play is close and exciting, and there's diving catches and clutch home runs and great relief corps and no hitters, and that's great. There can be 5 billion exciting baseball games going forward. I want the next 4 to be blowouts in favor of the Yankees, and then we can just put this season to rest and be the world champions.
I want to talk about a couple other guys, though. Anthony Rizzo. I think you and I were both kind of on the page of, what are you doing? Right? This is a guy with a broken hand, didn't look great down the stretch.
Played terrible defense in the beginning of those first couple of games of the Cleveland series. He couldn't move.
He started getting pulled late in games, which was smart. But we were saying, hey, play Oswaldo and Birdie. The guy batted almost 400. I think he batted 400 in this series, and he looks good. Like Rizzo looks to me like it looks like those were legit singles, right? Mm-hmm. He doesn't look like a power hitter. Frankly, I'm not sure he could hit a double in the gap. But I'm not sure if there's anyone on this team other than maybe Soto that I have more confidence in right now to get a batter in from second base.
Gleyber.
And maybe Gleyber. But I mean, Gleyber has been the leadoff guy. He's been the guy on second base and frankly not running very well, but Gleyber's up there too. Right. But the Yankees have been searching for a lefty cleanup hitter. Given that there's no lefties on the Dodgers, maybe they don't even need this. Maybe the threat of Anthony Bando late in games isn't that much. And so they can go Judge Stanton and not worry that they're going to stack some lefties together. But if they do want to go lefty righty in the lineup, I think Rizzo's my cleanup hitter right now. Chisholm has not looked great. Wells, even though he hit that home run, has not looked great. Rizzo, again, I don't think he's going to hit a home run, but I think he could be a playoff hero in really important ways. And then you pull him late in the game, you pinch run for him if he gets on in the 7th inning, and then Oswaldo Cabrera or John Birdie is your first baseman. I like Rizzo, right? I think Rizzo. I don't want to say intangibles. I mean, the analytics guy in me says, let's not talk about the intangibles of a veteran hitter. That's not real. Rizzo's been there before, right? He was on that 2016 Cubs team. He broke the curse. He seems like a guy with a great head on his shoulders. And frankly, I think this might be his last series of baseball. And so I think Anthony Rizzo can play, and I want him as my cleanup hitter or my number 5 hitter. I don't want Chisholm there. I don't think he's looked great. I really don't want Wells there. And so there's not really a lot of choices, and I think he can do it.
You just said something that no one else has brought up, and I think you made a powerful point. So I have 2 things one's a question, but I want to respond to that point you made. In 1994, Don Mattingly had an amazing series against the Mariners, and he was the Don Mattingly of old. He was Don Mattingly. And I've tried to explain this over the years. In the 80s, for young fans like me, Mattingly was Mantle or Gehrig or whatever. He
Judge.
was, so much larger than life. He was the epitome of the Yankees, and he was all our hopes and our dreams. And Don Mattingly still has that aura about him for us, right? Like he's just, I understand he's not a Hall of Famer, or if you say he's in, if he does go in someday, he's a lower tier Hall of Famer, and I get all that. But he was so legendary, and then he got hurt, and then for the second half of his career, he wasn't really very good, and he was just Don Mattingly. I hope it's sort of like nostalgia. I hope nostalgia comes through, and then the playoffs came in '94, and I think he hit over 400, a couple big home runs, and he said, as I recall, as the story goes, people are like, how'd you do that? How'd you turn back time and be the Mattingly of old? And he basically said, I knew this was it. So my back hurt all the time. And so I had to play with all that in mind, knowing I needed to play another game or another series or another season. At that point, I basically knew it was it. So I didn't care anymore. And I just said, I'm going to be Don Mattingly. And maybe Anthony Rizzo's doing the same thing.
I think so. And, he hasn't said this publicly. I'm sure maybe he wants to play next year. Maybe he'll play somewhere. I'm not sure that he should play next year. I'm not sure he can get a job, but he still has the talent, and he's not getting cheap hits, right? He's getting line drives to the outfield, which is more than I can say about a lot of the mid-20s guys that are on the Yankees roster right now. There's a converse part there, which is if you could get Chisholm hitting like himself or Wells hitting like himself, if you could get Alex Verdugo hitting a little bit better, I think you could really score a lot of runs because you have those big guys, because you have Stanton, who I think is kind of in a similar boat, right? Like Stanton, I'm sure has all sorts of physical problems during the year, and his numbers during this year were good but not great. But something like he just like clicked a button, and he's one of those guys that I think. At some point, we have to look at the mountain of evidence of him in the playoffs and say that there's something real there. Like usually that's not real. Usually it's just kind of the guy had a bad couple of playoffs. Giancarlo Stanton is one of the best playoff hitters ever, and has done it so well. I mean, my favorite fun fact I think I've ever heard during a playoff broadcast. I think it was again Ron Darling, or maybe it was Jeff Francoeur. And they said Giancarlo Stanton has 8 hits against the Cleveland Guardians in Cleveland in the playoffs. The Yankees have played the Guardians quite a lot. All 8 are home runs. And then he hit a 9th, right? Like Giancarlo Stanton is incredible. And I think that, we'll talk in the future about, what his future is with the Yankees, whatever. But for now, like I have the utmost confidence in him, and I would love him after Soto and Judge. Because I think that he's real protection. In fact, probably better than Judge right now, which is not something I expected to say. So, I am This is Giancarlo Stanton, Anthony Rizzo. You think about those veterans. This could be their last chance at the World Series. And Stanton, his post-game interviews after the ALCS were incredible. He's like, we haven't won anything yet. I want a ring. The other thing he basically said, he's like, we're going to keep Juan Soto here, which is just fantastic. Like, I mean, I'm sure all those players behind the scenes are being like, come on, bro, you gotta resign. And Soto's never going to say it publicly. There's too much money on the line. I'm sure at some point he's going to tell his agent, this is where I want to play. Get me as much money as possible. And I think he's going to say the Yankees because this team is going the distance. Win or lose the World Series, they've won series against a really good team. But I think this is you're gonna see these veterans kind of come together and do this. Aaron Judge, this might be his only chance to win a World Series. And imagine if Aaron Judge puts together has been essentially the best right-handed hitter of all time, has put together record-breaking seasons. And imagine if he retires as a Yankee and never wins the World Series.
No,
right?
that's a problem.
Think about that place in history. But what if he wins one or two or three, right? I mean,
that's correct.
Right? I mean,
part of your Yankee legacy has to have some World Championships. It has to. You can't ever be better than Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, Mantle, Berra, Jackson, all those guys. If you don't have a ring, it just that's part of what you had. Jeter, Mariano, Whitey Ford. That's just what you have to have. You have to have a ring.
I think about Anthony Volpe and Austin Wells, right? Those guys. What if they end up winning a World Series when they're that young? Then all of a sudden you start thinking about them in terms of other Yankee greats. Maybe they can win a 3 or 4 over the course of their career. I think about Garrett Cole, right? Maybe a Hall of Fame pitcher. I think he won one with the. Did he win? Was he on one of those Astros teams? I forget when he was traded to the Astros. But Garrett Cole could go down in Yankee history the same way that CC Sabathia is a Yankee legend in a lot of ways because he won a World Series. All those kind of like the histories. I was listening to the John Boyd podcast, the Talking Yanks podcast, and they had the exact same thoughts. They and I are all about the same age. And to me, like I experienced the 90s World Series through DVDs. Right? I would watch the 98 DVD, the 99 DVD. I watched the 2001 DVD forever because it was the most incredible world. It was stressful and we lost, but one of the most incredible World Series sporting events of all time. Just not just because of what happened on the field, but because everything going on off the field in New York. I mean, it was one of the greatest like sports stories of all time. Deserves like an update today, like a 30 for 30 kind of thing. And I'm just like writing the DVD in my head right now. Like what's the story going to be when we step back and there's talking heads doing interviews and, Brian Hoke and, and Michael Kay are talking about the team from afar. And I think Garrett Cole will be a big part of that. Garrett Cole started off the season injured. Could have had Tommy John surgery and spent a very long time rehabbing it. Garrett Cole missed half of the season. And he came back and he struggled. And then somewhere around mid to late July, just kind of became the best pitcher in baseball again. Hasn't done it in the playoffs a ton. It has one really good start. Hasn't had a lot of starts because the Yankees haven't played long series and all of that. But I think it's Garrett Cole's time to punch his Yankee legend ticket.
I agree. Now, one thing that's interesting, and this is more an off-season type of question, and then I have a silly question for you, but it kind of makes sense. You could tell me that it doesn't, and then I'll listen to you. But the off-season question is the one I forgot, so I'm going to ask the other one. We were talking about Garrett Cole. We were saying, and we touched upon this a couple of weeks ago, but we were saying that the Yankee window was closing. And it was. I think it was going to be slam shut after this year. I don't think it is anymore because Volpe and Chisholm and Austin Wells and Luis Gil, and if they bring back Juan Soto, there's a lot of young talent. But that's really for the winter. But tell me if this makes sense. Austin Wells had a terrible series because his timing obviously is off. Now, if his timing is off, and everybody's timing is off, doesn't that mean his timing will be on for with the week off, and maybe that's what gets him started? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
The
negative and
timing
a negative is
variable
a
will be
positive.
equalized, right? Everybody will be they'll I'm sure have some, they each have their ways of responding to the week off. But both of these teams are going to be rested as much as you can be in late October. I'm sure they all have minor injuries. They're going to have a week to hopefully treat those injuries and be a little better. One of the stories of this postseason has been that every catcher has hit abysmally. And I think it's just, they're all exhausted. They're all beat up and worn down. And maybe after another week off, they'll have some chance to recover there. I think that timing affects hitters more than pitchers, right? I think that pitchers are used to going 5 days, or as a starter, or even longer than that as a reliever, and is coming back and pitching in games. Like, that's not uncommon. And hitters, they want to go every day, right? And they might lose their timing. We've seen Aaron Judge lose his timing. We've seen Stanton lose his timing. I think that if I had a prediction based on that, maybe that you have pitching focused games 1 and 2. Maybe Cole and Rodon are able to really kind of exploit the Dodgers offense, and the same thing for the Dodgers. I think the difference is the Dodgers are going to throw a bunch of pitchers who can't really pitch right now against you. And the Yankees are going to throw their 2 best starters, who I think are still pretty top of the line starters right now. I'm just glad it's not a talking point. Like, I don't care anymore, right? Like, I'm also glad that these players aren't exhausted, that there's not one day off, and then they have to get on a plane and fly across the country and are are barely able to stand up, and they force themselves onto a baseball field. I want to see the best players in baseball play at the top of their games, and they're going to have that chance. The Yankees got to sleep in their beds for a while. They're probably going to fly to Los Angeles a day or two early to get accustomed to the time zone. The Dodgers are, they clinched and they're at home, and they're just hanging out. They both got to celebrate, and now they take a day or two off. If I'm the Yankees, I tell Aaron Judge and a few others, like, go sit on the beach somewhere, right? Just relax for a couple of days. And then they'll come back. They'll use the pitching machines. They'll have Andy Pettit and all those guys throwing batting practice, and then they'll get ready to play the series. I really do hope, especially Aaron Judge, can figure it out. I wonder if he's hiding an injury. Honestly, at this point, he's been so bad for so long now, and so off, just looking like not himself. I speculated that Juan Soto was hiding an injury before the Cleveland series, and I was just wrong. Right, like, Soto was incredible during the Cleveland series, and was pretty much his old self. I also just think there's probably a youth advantage right now. I've seen some studies that have shown that it's kind of pitting youth against experience. Basically, what's more important in the playoffs? And the answer is, it basically doesn't matter. Like, players are pretty much their regular season selves. But if there is an advantage, it's a small advantage for youth. The Yankees are a lot younger than the Dodgers. The Dodgers, their entire team, right? I'll read it out. Ohtani, 30 years old. Betts, 32. Freeman, 35 and injured. Max Muncy, 34. Teoscar, 32. Gavin Lux, 27. Will Smith, 30. Tommy Edman, 30. Kike Hernandez, 33. Starters, right? Starting rotation, 26-year-old Yamamoto, 29-year-old Flaherty, 30-year-old Walker Buehler. This is an old team. And we talk about windows. The Dodgers window is starting to close. They're still going to spend a ton of money. They're still going to have lots of great players. A lot of those injured starters will come back, like Glasnow, and be good again. But for a lot of these players, they might be a little tired. They might be in the same spot that Aaron Judge is in. And I think that maybe the reason why I say Volpe and Torres and some of these guys are just really good right now is that they're not tired. They got a little rest. They whatever nagging injuries they were bothering them, they had some time to nurse them, and they're good again. That might matter right now.
Volpe's actually, we haven't mentioned him at all, but he's really looked
Incredible.
Like the player everybody wanted him to be and expects him to be. Not this guy who can't hit, not this guy who doesn't take pitches, not this guy who's playing over his head. He's really playing very good baseball. He's hitting, he's coming through, he's taking walks. Stolen a
I
couple
saw some
bases.
interesting data on him. So he's made 2 changes during the playoffs from the regular season, which is interesting. One is he's swinging less. So
Right,
he's being
he's
more
taking
selective.
pitches.
I think he only swung at the first pitch once during the playoffs, which was the game 5 in Cleveland. I think that came up during the broadcast, and he got a hit. But also when he does swing,
that's a strategy, right? If a team knows you're not going to swing.
Oh yeah, no, the game theory here is fantastic.
Yeah.
But he's when he does swing, he is swinging harder than he ever did during the regular season. He was a below average bat speed guy during the regular season, pretty bad bat speed guy during the regular season. That's why he kind of had a noodle bat. He during the postseason, he has actually had above average bat speed. I think that's kind of the Volpe that the old Volpe. I think one of the stories of the season might be that Anthony Volpe made a mistake during the offseason to really kind of lose a lot of the potent part of his bat and become a singles hitter. He hasn't hit a lot of extra base hits in this postseason, but I feel like he's due for one. I feel like he's got that ability, but even if he just keeps hitting these singles, that's great. So Chris here says, if Judge does what we know, I like our chances. And his issue with Chisholm is he swings for the bleachers. Yeah, I mean, Chisholm is interesting, and I really would like to see what the Yankees can do in the offseason coaching him. I mean, we've seen a lot of players like Jazz Chisholm before, these incredible athletes who just play a little bit below the sum of their parts. They either strike out a lot, they don't have good pitch selection. Chisholm is one of the toolsiest players you'll ever see. And I feel like if you can unlock something, he could be a truly special player. And he's merely a good player without that. I think one of the stories of the season will be that he just decided to start playing third base and kind of saved the Yankees in a lot of ways there. And was really good for the Yankees during the regular season, though a lot of that was front loaded right after the trade. He was kind of bad in September. He's been really bad in the postseason. And I agree with Chris. I think that if I could coach him, I would try to get him to stop swinging for the bleachers. But maybe that's just kind of all he does. I think it's a legitimate issue that you should maybe think about playing Oswaldo. You got right-handed pitchers on the part of the Dodgers. Oswaldo's probably a better defensive third baseman than Chisholm. Chisholm has looked okay, but even during the ALCS, he had 1 or 2 plays that didn't look great, and that concerns me a little bit.
Now, this is where Chris and I are going to disagree, and I've written this for years, and I was wrong in that one game when they actually both hit. But I hate, and you and I have disagreed on this forever, but I hate Judge and Stanton hitting back to back. If they're not doing what they should and they're chasing outside pitches, I could get them out throwing into the outside batter's box. I mean, we've seen that for years. I'd rather have a batter between them. What do you think?
They do have some similar weaknesses. I think the reason to separate them for me is the lefty righty, and because there isn't a good lefty really, or there's only one lefty on the Dodgers pitching staff. I think I have less of a problem than normal. I'd say, if you had a good alternative, I'd love to separate them. And Rizzo is really the only alternative right now. He's kind of a singles hitter.
Well, and unfortunately, Giancarlo's doing so well, and they don't have anybody else. You almost have to go, but I still don't like it. All right, last thing I think from Chris, he's been very active here. This is good. If the Yankees don't re-sign Torres, Jazz could go to second. Now, again, that's going to be an off-season thing. But this is what tell me if you agree with this. I think he can handle third. He's done okay there. If I were the Yankees looking at next year, I'm not re-signing Gleyber. I think the qualifying offer is like $21.5 million. That's just crazy. They need to re-sign Soto. If money was no object and they didn't care, fine. But it's an object, and you have to. I don't think Gleyber Torres is a $21.5 million player. We can have that argument at a different time. But what I would do if I were the Yankees is I'd say he's competent at third. I don't love him at third. I think he's better at second. And I would see what's out there and say, if I can get a great second baseman, then Chisholm plays third. If I get a great third baseman, then Chisholm plays second.
And look, I think any problems we have with Chisholm at third base are just because he was thrust into this at the last minute. I think you give him a full spring training, you give him an off season, give him more reps. He's just going to improve. He's clearly a really athletic guy. He's got a lot of talent. I think he could play shortstop. I think he could play a lot of positions. and that's an asset. And so yeah, I either position I'm fine with. I want to ask you though. I mean, Gleyber Torres' postseason has been incredible.
I still don't re-sign him.
I think that's a different question. I think the chances of him re-signing like a short-term deal are really high. I think Gleyber Torres is prime for a 1-year deal. And
would he sign if you were him, would you sign a 1-year deal to stay with the Yankees?
I might sign a deal with an opt-out. 1 year, pays you $20-something million in the first year, pays you less in the years after that. So it's designed really to kind of force him to opt out. You know, I think that Torres has been so good down the stretch. And we've seen Torres go through stretches like this before. He's been elite for long periods of time before and has been abysmal for long periods of time, as he was this season. I think if they win the World Series and Gleyber Torres scores a lot of runs, I do think that chance goes up. We'll talk. I have some creative ideas with Torres, but I think that's again an off-season conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's looked bad defensively in the postseason. He hasn't looked great. Honestly, there haven't been a ton of ground balls to either side of the infield, especially and frankly, Volpe feels like he hasn't fielded a ball the whole series. A lot of fly balls, a lot of kind of hard balls that past the first baseman, that kind of stuff. And so I think Torres is I think he could go down as a Yankee legend, and then it'll be an interesting conversation about what do you do with him. The price is the question, right? There's a price that you would re-sign Torres to, and you're just guessing that the price is going to be too high.
I think the qualifying offer is $21.5 million.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to get a qualifying offer. I don't see a lot of people speculating that he will. But if he's the World Series MVP, maybe. I don't know.
In 2009, the World Series MVP was?
It was Hideki Matsui, and then he left for Oakland.
In 1996, the World Series MVP was?
John Wetland.
Was not a Yankey. Neither one of those guys were a Yankee the next year.
It's true, but they also don't have they just don't have I mean, I imagine where the Yankees would be right now without Torres.
Well, they wouldn't be where they are.
Ben Rice leading off. Right? They wouldn't be in the World Series.
That's correct.
So again, off-season conversation. I don't really want to talk about that stuff right now.
Well, we don't have time anyway. EJ, we're at the top of the hour. We did it.
We're at the top of the hour, and the next time we're going to talk is going to be during Game 3, I believe.
During Game 3, they play Friday, Saturday.
Yep. Then there's
Sunday
an off
off,
Sunday,
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then there's an off day Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday.
Friday, Saturday, right. And that they better not go to a Game 7. Yankees, and this is a perfect segue. EJ, I couldn't have set this up any better. Yankees, do not go to a Game 7 because that Game 7 would be on Saturday night, November 2nd. You cannot play November 2nd. You have to win the World Series before then because on Sunday morning, November 3rd, I'm going to be running the New York City Marathon. That's right.
There you go.
And I'm running it in support of the Sesame Workshop. Every dollar that I can earn through this goes directly to them and supports their programming for children across the country, across the world. If you go to start spreading the news, there's the same picture of me and Elmo running together is there. If you click on it, it goes to my gift giving page. Please find it in your heart to be generous and donate to the Sesame Workshop and support me as I support them running the New York City Marathon. But I do not want to stay up the night before watching the Yankees. And if they lose, I don't want to be running a race after they lost Game 7. So winning 6 at the most, please, Yankees. And then we can be happy and I don't have to worry about it.
I'm okay with that. I'll be on a plane probably during the beginning of Game 5. So I'd love for that game not to be the elimination game. So I don't miss that. But yeah, look, I'm excited for this series. It's going to be a fun series. I don't think this is a sweep. I think it's going long. These are two very good teams. I predicted a sweep for Cleveland. We were close. I predicted, I think, a 4-game series or maybe a sweep for Kansas City. That was close. And I think this is a 7-game series. I think the Yankees win in 7. I think the World Series MVP, I'm going with none other than Giancarlo Stanton. Let's go.
Oh, nice. Yep. All right. I don't think it'll be Judge. I'll say that. But that's it. We're at the top of the hour, and there's always another show. Thank you for watching the Start Spreading the News Yankees podcast with EJ Fagan and Paul Semendinger. And we'll be back here next Monday night during the game. Have yourself a happy week.